And we're live, but I'm going to tweet this out first. Okay, how's it going, buddy?
Good, man. We don't have to talk about the Broncos today. So
I know, that's how I'm going to start this, too.
good stuff.
I see we have two people in the chat. I don't know who's here, but we will start here in a second, so hold your horses. Answer your questions. Talk inactives and every inactives.
So, by the way, while Stompy's doing this, sounds like Geronimo Allison and Marquez Valdez-Scantling playing today.
Ugh.
Both going to be active. So,
damn it!
all of that stashing Alan Lazard and Jake Kumaro all week, all for naught.
Now I have to go into my.
Yeah, mess with your rankings.
Yeah, no, I got to mess with my lineups because I'm Alan Lazard in a few.
Yeah, I did that in a few places. One I'm really curious about is Amari Cooper. I wish that we could get an update there. Although that one's not until that's the night game, I believe, tonight. So we're probably not going to know for a while.
Okay, let's get some stuff up here. Let's be prepared today, huh? Because that's a thing.
Why start now?
Yeah, fuck it. Week 7, over, under. Seven inactives. All right. And we're in the comments. All right, we'll get going here in a second. Sorry, everybody. Kind of running around like a chicken with my head cut off right now. Trying to tweet this out so we can get more people in here because we like to be seen because we're very vain.
So vain. You probably think this show is about you.
It is about me. It's generally about
everything
me.
Is, man.
Yeah. Like, you're wrong if you don't agree with me.
It's your movie. We're just all playing ourselves in it. Making cameo appearances here and there.
I am the Truman Show. All right, I think we're good. All right, everybody. So John and I are excited because we get to actually enjoy football today.
Yeah.
Because we got to watch our Broncos lose on Thursday. So we don't have to watch them lose today. They had our hopes up. Now they're dashed. I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it?
With their
losing?
Kinda. I mean, I kind of started the season feeling like, man, just lose them all. Get a top pick and go get an actual quarterback. And,
or let's see what Drew Lock's made of. Okay. I know you like Drew Lock.
Yeah, Drew Lock. So, yeah, another John Elway big dumb quarterback pick. So, yeah, we can see what he's made of, and when we find out that he also has rocks for brains, just like every other big dumb quarterback Elway has drafted, then we can go get a real quarterback.
Mind you, John has not been very good this year on quarterbacks. So, meanwhile,
fine. I've been fine. Whatever. You man, you cannot wait until we get to this Titans Chargers matchup so you can talk up your boy Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, I'm not gonna really talk up anybody. I mean, I don't trust anybody in that pass game. So, but yeah, I mean, get your questions answered. And I mean, if you have any questions, talk to us in the chat. We are more than willing to answer any and all of your questions as we go through each of the games this week. As John mentioned at the top, both Geronimo Allison and Marquez Valdez-Scantling are active today, so that puts a damper on Alan Lazard. That puts a damper on Jake Kumaro. Probably a damper on Jimmy Graham, though. It seems that like maybe there's some trust issues with Aaron Rodgers and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So we'll see how that plays out today, especially with Devontae Adams out. But those Allen Lazard plays are not nearly as favorable today as they were yesterday or later or earlier in the week. So probably get him out of your starting lineups if you can. There's got to be a better options at this point. All right, John, let's start with the Raiders and Packers game here. The over-under for this, and now I can't find it because Action Network is screwing with me. But I believe that as I try to find it, the over-under is 47.5. Packers are favored by 4.5 at home. We know Terrell Williams is out for Oakland, so that leaves a lot to be desired on the Oakland side of the ball. I mean, Darren Waller's bound to get his double-digit targets this week. Do you trust anybody else on the Raiders side this week?
Not in the passing game, no. Josh Jacob. I mean, this is just going to be a run-heavy game on both sides, I think. I mean, Green Bay is bottom 5 against running backs. So, yeah, Josh Jacobs, man, DeAndre Washington, sorry, he might even be flex-worthy in a pinch. I am starting Trevor Davis this week in our Trade Addict 6 league because I have Tyrell Williams, and then after all of the guys that I have starting, I don't trust guys like Marvin Jones this week in Detroit because they play the Vikings, who have been good against the pass. And if Trevor Davis, I mean, it seems like he's been involved the last 2 weeks. He had 4 targets last week. He didn't have any the week before, but he was used in some jet sweeps and the like. So, I mean, that's how desperate I am at wide receiver right now without Tyrell Williams. I'm starting Trevor Davis. Do you think he could be a good play this week? Maybe just like one big play for a touchdown? Man, I still don't think so. I would think that he gets Jair Alexander, don't you? I mean, they bring in Zay Jones, who's typically been a slot receiver. He's probably going to see Kevin King. That's the thing. Trevor Davis kind of gets their toughest coverage on top of being kind of a nobody anyway. So, I mean, best of luck to you, my brother, but man.
Yeah. Well, luckily I don't really depend on wide receivers, but yeah, it's definitely wide receivers this week with buys and everything. It's kind of rough, and especially with injuries. I mean, Juju's out this week. Godwin, Evans are on bye this week.
Beckham, Landry.
DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, wide receivers are a little bit rough this week. So you might be scraping the bottom of the barrel. But in this game, is there a DFS play that you would want? Is there a DFS play that maybe is sneaky this week for the Raiders or the Packers?
I mean, I just go back to the running game. Jamal, without seeing prices in front of me, I kind of think Jamal Williams might be. He's probably cheap enough. I mean, I still think Aaron Jones is the guy that you want, all things being equal. But from a value standpoint, I would say Jamal Williams is probably the best play in this entire game. In the passing game, I don't see it with. Especially with now that we've got MVS, we've got Geronimo Allison, you don't have those guys that nobody sees coming anymore. But these guys are still coming off of injuries. So, their price is going to shoot up since they are active, but how much can you really expect from them? So I don't see anything in either passing game that I have any interest in.
I'm with you. Aaron Jones is 7,600 on FanDuel, whereas let me look up Williams' price. Jamal Williams is only 5,400, so you get about equal snap share. Touches are a little bit in the favor of Aaron Jones, but Jamal Williams had 104 yards on the ground last week. And it seems like LaFleur sat Jones after his fumble and then his drop, his wide open drop for a touchdown. Jamal Williams has been involved all year. And Aaron Jones just cannot pull away from him. And I think that's just how Matt LaFleur is going to continue to operate. So yeah, I mean, Jamal Williams for $2,200 less, I'm taking a chance there because, like I said, 104 rushing yards, 4 or 5 targets for 32 yards and a reception touchdown. While I don't think you're going to get that, you can very easily get double-digit fantasy points and double your return on investment there. Speaking of, we have a question from Sunny 1056 in the chat. He needs to start 2 of 3 with Kamara out and Connor on bye. Do you choose of these 3, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and Latavius Murray? What 2 do you choose here?
Oh man, that hurts because I don't really want to start both Packers. That's right. Just suboptimal. So this is setting up, to me, this sets up to be a Jamal Williams game script. Aaron Jones is kind of the guy that you want out there when you're chasing points. He's kind of he's the pass catcher. So we saw him late in the game against Detroit once Green Bay fell behind. But as long as they're in the lead, I think you're going to see a lot more Jamal Williams, and I don't think that they're going to be chasing points against Oakland. So I think you want Jamal Williams in there, and it's a horrible matchup for Latavius Murray, but I think you have to go that way just because you just really limit your upside if you go with, the full Green Bay backfield in your starting lineup. The one thing I guess I would say is if, for instance, you're playing against somebody who started Pat Mahomes and, got a really small number from him on Thursday night before he went out with the injury. And you're not going to be chasing points today. You can go a little bit safer. Then I would consider Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, but in a vacuum, I'm going to say Latavius Murray and bench Aaron Jones.
Wow. One of the truthers, Aaron Jones truthers, telling you to bench Aaron Jones here.
Yeah,
I think I'm on the same page. I just don't. I mean, I think that Aaron Jones gets opportunities this game, but with the quote unquote doghouse that he's in, it's hard to trust him this week. And they turned to Jamal Williams and basically didn't let him off the field after Aaron Jones's 2 snafus. So I think I agree with that because while Latavius Murray faces a very difficult defense against the run, the volume is there. And he could at the very least score a touchdown, and that would save your fantasy day with Latavius Murray. Whereas, we don't know what Aaron Jones is going to be this week. I think the safe play probably is Jamal Williams and Latavius Murray here. All right.
Yeah. And by the way, I do love Aaron Jones. In just about any other case, I would recommend starting Aaron Jones. I just don't like the combination of Jones and Williams. That's all this is about for me.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's definitely tough to start 2 of the same backfield. I'm actually doing it in one league with the Falcons. I have to start, because of the Kamara injury, I have to start Devonta Freeman and Ito Smith. And I hate it so much. And I'm just hoping that I'm getting stuff from my wide receivers. Sony also has a second question here. Pick 2 of the 3 for his flex. Julian Edelman, Michael Gallup, or Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry is definitely one for me here. Between Gallup and Edelman, that's really tough. Edelman's always going to get 7 to 10 targets a game. He is the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots. Faces a New York Jets secondary that has not been good against slot receivers. Has not been good against the pass in general. But Gallup faces the Philadelphia Eagles. And if Amari Cooper is out this week, Gallup becomes a wide receiver 1 there. And I know people saw him struggle last week in that same role, but it was a more difficult defense in the Jets. And I know that's contradicting what I just said and saying that the Jets have not been good against the pass, but that just tells you how bad the Eagles have been. They do get 2 of their starters back, but they weren't good when they were there either. Ronald Darby, and I can't remember the other one. So
Avonte Maddox.
I don't think he's back this week. I think it's one other guy, and I can't remember. It doesn't really matter because they're all bad.
Right. Right.
So I think this comes down to if Amari Cooper is ruled out. But I mean, I think the Patriots are in an early game. Oh no, they're on Monday night.
Yeah, they're Monday night. So
I'll say this: if Amari Cooper is ruled out, I would go with Amari Cooper. But if Amari Cooper's there, I'd probably go Edelman.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do too. It's still a juicy matchup for Gallup, even if Cooper plays. I think I think that's the way to go here. It's kind of shaping up to be a little bit of a pass heavy game for the Patriots, which doesn't happen often, but it's already been a good run stopping defense for the Jets, and now they get CJ Mosley back. There could be a lot of passing in that game, and definitely want a piece of it.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the next game here, we have the Rams at the Atlanta Falcons. The line here is 54 point, the over-under is 54.5, the highest of the week. It looks like Rams are favored by 3. Atlanta is home dogs, which makes sense. I mean, Atlanta is 1-5 right now. Their defense is so bad, and it's only getting worse for them because they lost Keanu Neal for the season with the Achilles injury. They are down their top cornerback this week as well in Desmond Trufant. So that secondary was bad, and now it gets worse. This is basically a situation where I'm starting I shouldn't say all of the pass catchers. I'm not afraid to start all 3 wide receivers this week for the Rams. Kupp obviously being the wide receiver 1. Cooks has been up and down, but that's Cooks' career. He's just an up and down player. He's a best ball special. I mean, he's better than a best ball special, obviously, but he's not going to be as consistent as you think. And then Robert Woods has just not been great, but I think this is a game where everybody gets off the schneid, and they score a lot of points, and it's with the passing game.
Oh, yeah. Cooper Kupp is the wide receiver 1 overall for me for the week, and it's kind of not close. Like T.Y. Hilton is second, and it's in a nice matchup, and it's still I would way prefer Cooper Kupp. There's absolutely nobody that I would start over Cooper Kupp at this point, for at least for this matchup. So. But yeah, I mean, I think you start them all, and I think Josh Reynolds is probably even a little bit viable in those super deep leagues with a lot.
I mean, I would lean Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, Gerald Everett is pretty much a must start, I'd say, at tight end, and Higbee is viable. But yeah, I mean, I think Josh Reynolds could get in on this. I will say that I'm probably taking the under on this game. Really? This feels like this is a little bit of a trap. I mean, not that either of these defenses are really any good. It's just that in both cases, the game plan should be to attack with the running game, try and keep the other offense off the field. We might see a lot of that. So where I think that I think that there are touchdowns to be had. I think that that the must start guys, Cooper Kupp, Julio Jones, obviously, and then it's the running games. I think Darrell Henderson is a pretty sneaky start for me today. I think Devontae Freeman is he's an RB1. Like you said, I mean, Ito Smith even is viable today. I mean, late. I think that there's a chance for garbage time here, but I don't know that they're going to put up the type of points that Vegas is kind of expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously we can disagree here. I don't necessarily agree with that. I just both defenses have struggled this season. Jalen Ramsey obviously going to LA, but I don't know how much you can really expect from Jalen Ramsey in his first game with the Rams. He'll probably be I would expect shadowing Julio Jones most of this game. Mm-hmm. But regardless, I mean, you're obviously not sitting Julio. These defenses, like I said, have not been good. The Falcons allow the sixth most yards per game. Looking up things. The second most points per game. The Rams have struggled of late, having given up a lot of points, a lot of yards through the air. So I expect them to come out throwing, especially after the Rams, specifically after the debacle that was last week's game with 78 yards thrown for Jared Goff. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Like I said, two bad secondaries, two bad defenses. I just think that there's going to be a lot of scoring because the Falcons are going to need to throw at some point because I think they're going to fall behind. And I think the Rams, just to kind of get up and get some confidence back in Goff, are going to throw as well. Mm-hmm. And then that leaves, I think the Rams have also struggled against the run. I do like Devonta Freeman this week. He's been involved in the pass game. He's been a lot better the last 4 weeks. And I think he is probably a RB1 this week. Again, the Rams, I believe, have given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs over the last 3 weeks. Let me look that up real quick. But they just have not been good. So, yeah, I mean, start basically everybody at this point for me. Mm-hmm. All right. We have a couple questions in the chat from, I believe, Dougie from Rated IDP Live. Geronimo Allison or Anthony Miller?
Allison. Miller is such an afterthought in that offense at this point.
I get it.
Taylor Gabriel is back from the concussion, by the way. Last time we saw him, he went for 3 touchdowns?
I get it. But Anthony Miller has been more and more involved over the past few weeks. He got 4 targets last week, the most of the season. I believe he saw the most or the highest snap share last season.
And again, that's with Taylor Gabriel out.
Well, but I mean, Taylor Gabriel is more of an outside threat, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the Saints have struggled against slot wide receivers. I mean, they've given up a ton of. I mean, last week notwithstanding, and yes, that was. I mean, I think a lot of people were on D.D. Westbrook last week, but it didn't really work out. That was a weird game. So we're gonna get back to it this week with. I mean, personally, between those two, it's Gabriel for me, and I cannot apparently get this up on Player Profiler.
Miller, you're going Miller.
No, yeah, I'm going to go with Miller just because of the slot numbers that the Saints give up. PJ Williams wasn't a good cornerback, but he's out. Yes, we don't know necessarily what the slot situation is going to look like in terms of cornerback, but you would expect that if PJ Williams is the starting slot corner, that the guy behind him is far worse. So that's my thought here.
You would think that whole secondary is rough, though. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore doesn't even scare you that much anymore. He'll be on Allen Robinson. That leaves Eli Apple, who's been dreadful, on Taylor Gabriel. I don't know. There's plus matchups all over the field. Tariq Cohen can get pretty involved in this game, catching the ball too. So there are just so many mouths to feed in that offense. And then conversely, Green Bay all of a sudden gets, two of their top wide receivers that it was looking like they might be down to their fourth and fifth string guys. So just having Allison in a good matchup, he's probably their biggest red zone threat. They haven't really been targeting Jimmy Graham. Aaron Jones can't catch the ball in the end zone apparently. So yeah, Allison easily has the best chance to score for me.
Fair enough. Another question in the chat from our friend Jack Humphreys from the Kickers Matter podcast. I believe I said that right. Mixon or Melvin Gordon this week PPR?
Man, it's really pretty close. I'll go with Mixon. That's the best way to attack that Jacksonville defense is with the running game, and the Bengals don't run the ball or don't throw the ball particularly well with all the injuries. So yeah, I think that's we're still kind of trying to feel our way through what that Chargers running back situation is going to look like going forward, because got to be honest, man, Austin Eckler is the better back. Like he just is. Yep. And it could be an Austin Eckler game script. You can run the ball against Tennessee, but it's a lot easier to move the ball, throwing short to those running backs. So I could see Austin Eckler being pretty involved today and cutting into what Melvin Gordon can do.
It's just I don't like that game whatsoever.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you do. You love Ryan Tannehill.
I really don't. I don't know why you think I love Tannehill. I just hate.
You're so happy today.
I am happy because Mariota is going to sit, and for some reason Corey Davis is going to go off.
See,
yeah, I'm with
Ryan Tannehill.
I don't love Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, I agree on Mixon. Jaguars have given up the 5th most fantasy points to running backs the last 3 weeks. On the season, they've given up the 7th most. I get it. Like Mixon is just scary right now because that offense is just not great. That line is not good. But at some point, you would think that Zach Taylor has to learn that you need to use your weapons.
Yeah.
And Mixon is very good at catching the ball. And he needs to run more than 8 goddamn routes a game. Zach Taylor, figure it out.
Weapon. Yeah. Especially coming from an LA system where, I mean, he knows what they had when Todd Gurley was healthy, and he knows what they had when Todd Gurley was not healthy.
Right.
And it's night and day. He knows this. He's seen it firsthand. Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating.
All right. The questions keep coming on. JB, Christoph, Eckler, James White, Latavius Murray, sit one standard league. Latavius Murray for me.
Yeah, sit Murray pretty easily.
It's a very bad matchup. He does have volume on his side, but it's the Bears. Like, I don't think you really trust starting many people against the Bears.
No.
One more from Dougie here. Darnold or Daniel Jones this week? It's Daniel Jones. Darnold faces the Patriots. Patriots have shut down everything involved with an offense, including quarterback. Daniel Jones plays the Cardinals, who do get Patrick Peterson back after a 6-week suspension, but they've given up the most fantasy points to QBs. Daniel Jones can avoid Patrick Peterson all day. He has Golden Tate. He has Evan Ingram. He has Saquon Barkley back. It's definitely Daniel Jones for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus just the pace that Arizona runs their plays. I mean, you just get so many more snaps off than Daniel Jones is going to take so many more snaps than Sam Darnold. it could be close to double.
All right. We will move on with our games this week. 49ers at Washington Football Club, because I refuse to say their name because it's racist. This is a very gross game to me.
Yeah.
I think any game involving the 49ers is pretty disgusting.
Yep.
Just because that defense is legit. I mean, they've held Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff to a total of 178 yards passing over their past 2 games. That just tells you how dominant they've been. They are right behind the Patriots in terms of being the best defense in the league. So, I mean, do you even trust Terry McLaurin in this game?
Not. I mean, I think he's still a flex consideration. I think that they can move him around the formation enough to get him away from Gilmore a little bit. There's also, or not Gilmore, Sherman.
Yep.
I mean, that's the 49ers secondary is a little banged up. That's the thing. Like, I don't know how they're doing. I mean, they're doing this with the pass rush. That's the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
The secondary is not great. I think they're still without Jimmy Ward, I believe. Kelly Witherspoon's missed a lot of time.
Let me check the inactives here. They do not have Witherspoon. Ward is there. Ward's active.
Ward's back. Okay.
Yeah. Ward was back, I believe, last week too. So
yeah, that helps a little. I mean, just on volume, I think that you can still flex Terry McLaurin, but it's another one of those. It's more of a safe type of play. There's very limited upside there. A lot of his game so far has been, on deeper stuff, and you just don't have time. You don't have time for a full drop back and go down the field when you've got that pass rush coming after you. So it's pretty limited, but again, I think he could get there on volume.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about it. It's an ugly bye week for wide receivers, and it's just hard to sit a guy like Terry McLaurin this week. Even in the game where he played the New England Patriots, he still had 51 yards. So it's not like he's just not usable in these weeks. It's just you need to temper your expectations. As we like to say in Superflex Super Show, he's definitely a yellow light this week because he will get the volume.
Yep.
He just will not. He probably will not put up like the touchdowns and the yards that you're used to. Other inactives in that game, Vernon Davis and Chris Thompson. So really it's Terry McLaurin, and then if you want to trust Paul Richardson, but it's Terry McLaurin and Jeremy Sprinkle.
Yeah.
This game is going to be very, very disgusting. I mean, they might be throwing a ton just because they have to, the Washington, but it's just going to be kind of gross.
Yep.
And then on the other side, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's where I was going to go with it. Yeah. On the other side, San Francisco is what we try and accuse New England of being on offense, which is just, I mean, this big mishmash of very similar players. You can never figure out on a week-to-week basis which ones you can trust. I mean, Tevin Coleman's back. He was pretty involved in the passing game the last 2 weeks. He looks like the lead back, but I don't know how you keep Matt Breida off the field. In the passing game, I mean, Kittle is still a rubber stamp starter at tight end, but beyond that, I mean, it could be Pettis. Goodwin could get free.
Yep.
Deebo Samuel could finally have the week that we've been expecting. Like any one of these guys.
Well, and mind you, San Francisco leads, and it really depends on how you look at it, but they either lead the league in rush to pass ratio or last in the league in pass to rush ratio. They throw the ball only 44% of the time.
Yeah, because they don't need to.
Right.
Their defense puts the passing game in a negative game script.
And it seems like Shanahan's starting to figure out that Jimmy G is probably not the answer at QB. Even though they're 5-0, Jimmy Jesus has not been a good QB throughout his career, except for that 5-game stretch where he still had a 7 touchdown to 5 interception ratio. But yeah, I mean, they win with running game and defense, and that's a good thing for both Breida and Coleman this week. Coleman, though, has, since he's been back, has had a higher snap share, has had more touches. So I think Coleman is a very good start this week. But Braid is a sneaky start because I think there'll be plenty of volume because I just don't think this game is going to be close. And then, the only pass catcher that you really trust is Kittle there. So it's kind of a gross game in terms of fantasy, but there are some fantasy viable guys on the 49ers side of the ball.
Yep. It would be tough to you're going to hate this one, I know, but I still somewhat believe in Dante Pettis. I think I'm going to flex him over Terry McLaurin.
Really?
Yeah, just on the matchup.
All right. That is
it's a little hot. It's a little, yeah.
I just, for me, it's one of those, I'm just not trusting that passing game except for Kittle because they involve the running backs in the passing game. They involve, obviously with Kittle, and then the target shares for the wide receivers just are all over the place. Yep. And Marquise Goodwin's got the highest snap share, and then Deebo Samuel, and then Dante Pettis is getting in there more than Deebo Samuel the last couple of weeks. But Kendrick Bourne is getting touches too. It's all over the place. So really, I just trust the running backs and the tight end in this passing game.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. We have the Texans at Colts. The line here is, or the over-under is 46, has the Colts by -1, so effectively it's a push because the Colts are, or the Colts are at home. Usually you get that -3 for home games, so really probably Houston's a little bit favored here, which they should be, I think. That offense is spectacular. Unfortunately for Hopkins owners, he's getting volume, but he's just not getting ADOT, and that's really weird. Like last week, I believe he had double-digit targets, but he only had like 50 some odd yards.
Yeah.
And while that's fine for PPR leagues, you're getting double-digit fantasy points. It's definitely not what we've been looking for from Hopkins this season.
Yeah. And it's, a big part of it, I think, has been, just Will Fuller being healthy, being on the field. That's where all your deep passes are going right now. And that, that's really why they brought Will Fuller there, was to be that field stretcher. So,
right. And Coutie's getting more involved as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And Carlos Hyde has actually been effective. That's another one that I know you hate to hear, but he's been really pretty effective and keeps them out of long yardage situations.
Believe it or not, I don't like Carlos Hyde this week. The Colts have actually been decent against the running backs. They're 10th in fantasy points given up to running backs on the season. The last 3 weeks, they've given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. They're a lot more vulnerable through the air. You appear to see her, but then that's about it for that secondary. And with the amount of weapons, the pass catchers, and that includes the 2 tight ends, which is something we need to talk about. It's just going to be hard to stop Deshaun Watson in that passing game.
Yeah. It's a bad matchup for Carlos Hyde. I definitely agree with that. Like, to a point where I would rather take a shot with either of the San Francisco running backs. I'd feel better about either of the Buffalo running backs.
Yep.
Even Devin Singletary coming back off an injury, it's a much better matchup. Jamal Williams. Yeah, Carlos Hyde is kind of he's a low end RB2 for me this week. And even then, not feeling great about it. If I'm in one of those situations where I'm kind of chasing points, there are a lot of guys that I would rather take a chance with.
Yeah, I definitely agree. and he's definitely he's had his boom games. I mean, he had over 100 yards last week, but Hyde has definitely had his bust games as well. And I just because he's not involved in the pass game, which the Colts are a little bit more vulnerable through the air in terms of running backs, but Hyde's just not involved in that pass game. It's Duke Johnson. I would rather I would rather start Duke Johnson this week than I would Carlos Hyde.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm not quite there, but I agree with the process.
I don't think there's any notable inactives here. Bradley Roby's out.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, Paris Campbell's inactive this week. Kenny Moore is inactive this week. The Colts' other starting cornerback. So this might be a relatively high scoring game with the two secondaries struggling the way they or injured or struggling this week. And I would not be surprised to see this be higher scoring than most think.
Yeah. Zach Pascal is a pretty sneaky flex consideration. T.Y. Hilton, I mentioned earlier, Cooper Kupp is the only wide receiver that I like better than T.Y. Hilton this week. And it's by a significant margin, but T.Y. Hilton, I mean, they've got no one to really cover him. The Colts have nobody else to really throw to. It's just kind of through attrition. T.Y. Hilton is just one of the best wide receivers of the week.
You're gonna make me change up a lineup here.
Nice.
Because of that. And I was sitting there and I have so much Cooper Kupp and I don't have any T.Y. Hilton, so I'm going to change a DFS lineup here.
Oh, nice.
To add Cooper Kupp or T.Y. Hilton. There you go. All right. Let's talk about the tight ends here. Darren Fells. I mean, this was a super concentrated offense last season. I mean, they had Fuller, and then Kuti, and then Hopkins was always involved, but that was basically it in terms of the pass catchers last season. I mean, there was no real other help, and then all of a sudden we now have two tight ends, Jordan Akins, whatever, and Darren Fells getting significant snaps, getting significant playing time, being involved. I mean, Darren Fells last week caught 6 of 7 for 60 some odd yards. He is tied for the Texans' lead in red zone targets, tied for the Texans' lead in touchdowns. He seems to be a red zone target that Deshaun Watson trusts. Do we trust Darren Fells this weekend and for the rest of the season?
Man, I don't think it's consolidated enough. I think the combination, Akins is still there, and I mean, to me, he's the more athletic guy, the better pass catcher. So, just the fact that regardless of how you feel about those two, just the existence of both of them just kind of limits both of their upside to a point where, I mean, they're both kind of streamable type guys, but kind of like high end tight end 2 type of guys. But there's neither one of them really kind of, steps up, rises above the other one for me. I don't know. What do you think?
I like Fells a lot. I mean, I think last week showed a lot for me, him being involved as much as he was. But I mean, you're right. And it seems like Houston's playing a lot of 12 personnel. Last week, Fells played 80 snaps. Jordan Akins played 67. So they were on the field a lot together. Previous week, it was 58, 48, 43, 33. So they seem to be on the field more and more. And I think that's to help Deshaun Watson and his protection. But that means that they're going to be on the field and they're going to be targets. So it's a valid concern because yes, you have both on the field, but over the last 3 weeks, Fells is a tight end 8. over the last 5 weeks, Fells is the tight end, also the tight end 8. So he's not going away. And while, yeah, I mean, there's some issues, and really it's only been since week 3 that he's been more involved. But and sometimes, like, he had a 1 target game. In week 5 he had a 2 target game, but he caught both of them for touchdowns. So I think that's the thing for me, is he's a red zone target. He's in there on the red zone or in the red zone, and if you waited late to get tight ends and they're not working out for you, Darren Fells is definitely an option rest of the season for me.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's going to be in that conversation of streamers the rest of the season for sure. But yeah, the two just kind of limit one another's upside a little.
All right, so we have 2 questions in the chat. One football related, one not football related. Should Bill have pizza or shawarma today?
What the hell is shawarma?
I think it's some dough nonsense. It's a Middle Eastern delicacy.
Is it at all similar to pizza? Like,
no.
Well, then there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely pizza. You're asking a guy who's gluten intolerant.
Well, that's true. Yeah, two balls of gluten. Either one of them would kill me. So eat them both and keep them away from me.
There you go. And then Nick Faber, the co-host of the Daily Blitz on the FFMercs podcast network, Will Fuller, Terry McLaurin, Devin Singletary this week.
Let's see. I think that PPR, just one of those guys. I guess it's Fuller. Just barely over Singletary though.
I think it's what it's ceiling versus, and that doesn't even make sense. Ceiling versus floor to me, but Fuller, I think ceiling. Singletary, I think, will be involved regardless, and he's been extremely efficient. Well, at least in the 2 games that he played, and he's playing Miami, so I think they will get him involved, get him some carries. So I think Singletary's the floor, Fuller is the ceiling. Like, you just can't trust, because Fuller has had the one game basically this season.
Yep.
Singletary, we've only seen him in 2 games, but he was very efficient in those 2 games, and I like that matchup a ton. So yeah, I mean, it's floor versus ceiling. It's high risk, high reward with Fuller, relatively low risk, middling reward for Singletary to me. All right, then and Nick has responded. He's 2-4. He needs a victory. So and if you're going for it, it's got to be Fuller.
Yeah,
because he very easily could have a 100-yard, 2-touchdown game with Deshaun Watson, and that's, like I said, that secondary. I mean, I would expect Pierre Desir to somewhat shadow DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
and which leaves Fuller over the top, and he very easily can score 2 touchdowns. All right. Another question, Brandon Rojas. Am I crazy for still having Lazard in my cash lineups today after the MVS and Allison news? Cash, yes, I think. I think if he was in a tournament lineup, in a GPP lineup, I would like that better, because it's a good pivot, because people will back off of Lazard after the news that MVS and Allison are back. But with the vote of confidence from Rodgers last week, and Allison just coming off of concussion protocol, and MVS dealing with knee and ankle injuries, it could end up being a decent play for you in GPP. But in cash, I'm definitely not trusting that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, Lazard definitely has all the upside in the world. But yeah, is in a cash game where you're looking for a little bit more floor, he definitely does not offer that.
All right, on to our next matchup this week. We have the Vikings at the Lions. The line is Minnesota a 2.5, so Detroit's home dogs. Over-unders 43.5 points. What do you think about this matchup?
Man, I think this is Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably Kerryon Johnson. And man, not a whole lot else that Adam Thielen, I think, is still a good play. And by proxy, Kirk Cousins. But I think Diggs gets Darius Slay. I think Galladay gets Xavier Rhodes, which isn't nearly the matchup that it used to be, but it's still significant. And I don't know. There's not a whole lot to like on the Detroit side, but again, a good way to attack this for them would be through the running game. So I think you could see a high volume day for Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah, I think Hawkinson might be a good stream this week. The Vikings have given up double-digit fantasy points to three tight ends, and then last week they gave up a total of over 19 points to Goddard and Ertz. So if there's really a quote-unquote weakness for this Vikings defense, it's definitely against tight ends. But like you said, the secondary has not been nearly as good. Like they've stopped the run or they've stopped wide receivers well, but they're not as scary as we think. They're 15th in the league in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They've definitely given up fantasy points to wide receivers. So I'm not, the prospect of starting Galladay is not that scary to me. The prospect of starting Stafford's a little bit more scary. I actually pivoted off of Stafford to Gardner Minshew this week because I like that matchup better. But yeah, I think Galladay's fine. I don't like Marvin Jones. I think TJ Hawkinson, if you need to stream, is an okay option. Yes, he's very much been a rookie tight end this season. There hasn't really been a tight end that we can trust from the rookie class this year, which is kind of disappointing considering it's Noah Fant, it's TJ Hawkinson, it's Irv Smith. It was a class that we thought rivaled that of like OJ Howard and David Njoku, which have been disappointed so far as well. So, but it's rookie tight end, so I don't know how much you can expect. But if you need to stream, I think Hawkinson is not a bad option there. But and like you said, on the Viking side, it's Dalvin Cook 100%. The Lions have definitely struggled against pass catching running backs, but they've given up the third most fantasy points to running backs this season. They've given up, I believe no, I'm looking here and I'm not finding it. Regardless, it's definitely a Dalvin Cook game this week. David Johnson had a monster game. Austin Eckler had a monster game. Even like Miles Sanders had a good game. Jordan Howard had a decent game. They've given up 7 double-digit fantasy games in 5 games this season, including Jamal Williams last week, LaShawn McCoy and Darrell Williams a week before. So definitely a Dalvin Cook game. The Lions have struggled against slot wide receivers, and they just don't have a slot cornerback. I mean, the cornerback that you're afraid of there is Darius Slay, and while Diggs did have that monster game, and it's hard to sit him now if they're going to start throwing the ball more, he's probably a good flex play, but I'm tempering my expectations there. But the Lions against slot receivers, they gave up 25.3 to Larry Fitzgerald. They gave up 17.8 to Keenan Allen, 25 points to Nelson Aguilar, who hasn't really done much else this season. So yeah, I mean, they can be exposed from the slot. I mean, Geronimo Allison had 40 yards against them in week 6.
Alan Lazard's touchdown came on slot corner Justin Coleman too. So yeah. And Adam Thielen and Alan Lazard are 2 different conversations. So
right. Yeah. I mean, you have one of the best route runners, arguably the best slot receiver in the game versus Alan Lazard.
Right.
So yeah, other than that, yeah, I mean Marvin Jones, I'm not loving. You're not really starting any other pass catchers in for Minnesota. So yeah, I think it might be a Kerryon Johnson, Dalvin Cook game, and then sprinkle Adam Thielen and Kenny Golladay in there as well.
Yep.
Next, Jaguars at Bengals. I don't know how to feel about this game because the Jaguars got shut down against the Saints, though the Saints defense has been a lot better of late. It's I don't know what to trust here right now, but the Bengals, I mean, obviously it's the Bengals defense. I like Gardner Minshew. If you need to start D.D. Westbrook, he is active. I don't mind D.D. Westbrook. Obviously, DJ Chark. The Bengals have not given up a lot of points to wide receivers, but they've given up, but they can be run on. And I don't think that the Cincinnati Bengals secondary is that good to shut down wide receivers. So I think DJ Chark, with how much he's been involved and how he's produced, has to be a start. And then Leonard Fournette might be the start of the week for me in terms of running backs this week.
Yeah, he's my running back one, and that's the thing. Cincinnati is the worst in the league at stopping the run. So I kind of think that pass defense is being propped up a little bit by the fact that nobody's really throwing on them because they don't have to. So I mean, I think you can still feel good about Minshew, Chark. D.D. Westbrook is kind of a flex plug and play type of guy. Even Chris Conley could get in on this. But it's all going to start with Leonard Fournette. And he's, like I said, to me, he's running back one. As much as I love the matchup that Dalvin Cook has with Detroit, the fourth worst run defense, Fournette is still number one for me.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they are not good. And now I've lost myself here again. The Bengals have given up the most fantasy points to running backs. They've allowed 40 receptions this season as well for 400 yards, 401 yards. So the second most yards and 3 touchdowns. Fournette has the 7th most running back targets this season. This is a Leonard Fournette game. He is going to crush it, I think, this week. On the other side, we already talked about Mixon. I think he's a decent start this week. Hopefully, again, Zach Taylor learns his lesson and gets Mixon more involved in the passing game. Tyler Boyd, I think you have to start. He's the slot receiver. AJ Bouye is not going into the slot. So Tyler Boyd could be in for a huge game this week too. Jalen Ramsey's out. So we'll see what happens with Auden Tate. If anything, Auden Tate's going to be shadowed by AJ Bouye, so I don't know how much you can trust Auden Tate this week. So I think it's a Tyler Boyd game definitely this week for me.
Yeah, I will say Auden Tate AJ Bouye gives up several inches to Auden Tate. And when Jalen Ramsey got traded, they lost a lot of physicality in the secondary there. I think Auden Tate is still viable. I guess that's kind of my long way of saying I think Auden Tate is still a flex consideration. Kind of maybe even a low end wide receiver too. Even though it's a tough matchup with AJ Bouye, I think that Auden Tate is the tougher matchup than AJ Bouye, just based on, you know, the way he plays, you know, his size, his catch radius. That's all tough stuff for AJ Bouye to deal with, and that's the type of thing that they normally would have put Jalen Ramsey on.
And there you go. So, I mean, not a lot of good defense going on here. I didn't talk about the line. Where are we at? Over-under is 44.5. Jacksonville's favored by 4.5. So Cincinnati is home underdogs. So, yeah, I mean, I think you can trust most of the players that you would play this week. It's just not good. It's good matchups on both sides.
Yep.
On to our next matchup, and we're going to have to hurry along here. We only have half an hour. Cardinals at Giants, basically start everybody.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. David Johnson is a top 3 running back for me this week. Kyler Murray's quarterback 2 for me this week. Saquon coming. My only hesitation was Saquon Barkley. He's outside of my top 5 at running back 6, and it's only because this is the first week back from that high ankle sprain. I don't know if they're going to have him on a limited snap count. It's certainly a possibility. But you're still starting him. You have to. He's the best back in the game. The Cardinals get Patrick Peterson back, so I don't think like Cody Latimer is viable. I don't think Darius Slayton is really viable this week. Well, they might be. I'll say this. I don't. Is Peterson more of a side of the field or is he a shadow guy? I don't think he needs to shadow anybody in this game, but yeah, they would probably. I mean, they should play sides with him. They should put him on the left side of the defense, and just forget about it. If when there's nobody to shadow, I think he does typically play sides.
So, really, the pass catchers for New York, it's Evan Ingram, who could have a gigantic game this week. I mean, there is no reason to think that Evan Ingram is not going to be 20 plus points this week, being who he is, but also because he is one of 3 pass catchers. So this is going to be very, very concentrated. Golden Tate from the slot. Nobody's going to really cover Golden Tate in the slot, and he's really the only viable wide receiver I like this week. And then Saquon, obviously. Daniel Jones is a good start as well. And then on the other side, Kyler Murray's been a lot better. The Giants secondary has struggled. Larry Fitzgerald, we're now calling him Larry Legend, is going to obviously get targets. I don't think Christian Kirk's playing. I don't know if you want to trust Keyshawn Johnson. I don't know if you want to trust Demir Bird. So it's Larry Fitzgerald and it's David Johnson for me as the pass catchers. And then I don't really trust anybody else on catching the ball.
Yeah, not really. I mean, maybe some, not even GPP. There's definitely a high ceiling with those guys, obviously. I mean, we saw Demir Bird had a long touchdown last week, I believe it was. So, those guys can get involved. It's just, do you really want to play the game where you're trying to figure out which one it's going to be? I'm not doing it.
Right. Okay, moving on to our next game here. Dolphins at Bills. Start nobody for the Dolphins and start everybody for the Bills. Maybe not everybody.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I mean, really though, the Bills secondary is mostly Tre'Davious White. The question becomes, and again, do you really want to play this game? Do you have to play this game? If you don't have to, avoid it. But I mean, I think that there's an angle here where I think that they probably put Tre'Davious White on Devontae Parker, which means Preston Williams he's flex consideration, kind of a low end flex guy for me. But I think that, just with how beat up and vacant the wide receiver position is this week, I think people are probably in a position where they're considering guys like Preston Williams versus, we talked about Anthony Miller, maybe Duke Williams on the other side of this.
Yeah.
There's some pretty gross names. People still starting Alan Lazard. I think Preston Williams is pretty easily in the conversation at that point.
So Albert Wilson was involved last week. He had 5 targets.
Yeah.
I don't know who they have in the slot to cover Albert Wilson, but maybe he gets more involved this week. But really, just not a lot to love in Miami
Yeah.
ever really. But yeah, I mean it's a valid point. Preston Williams has been involved at times. On the other side of the ball, I think Gore's a safe start. I think Singletary is the upside start. If they want to get him some more playing time this week, just because it is the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen's a good start this week. He's got that rushing floor, so he's a fine start this week. And then you have to kind of figure out the pass catchers. The only two I really like is Cole Beasley, just because he seems like the safety blanket, and then John Brown, Smokey Brown, seems to be the deep threat. So I could definitely see both of those guys doing fine this week. I prefer John Brown just because of the deep threat, but I get if you want to stack Beasley for that safe floor.
Yeah, definitely. And I would still say to stash Duke Williams. I don't think you're starting him this week, but last time we saw him, it was 5 catches, 70 some yards and a touchdown. He looks like he could be what we thought Robert Foster was going to be, and is worth the stash. And let's see what happens this week. Very good matchup. They've got a lot more coming, so it's not like this is your last chance. But stash him. Let's see if the usage continues. And we could be talking about Duke Williams as a wide receiver 2 within the next couple weeks.
I skipped over a question here. Thoughts on Josh Oliver? He will be suiting up for the first time this week for Jacksonville. I was all over Josh Oliver early, just because, and this had mostly to do with John DeFilippo and Nick Foles targeting the tight end fairly often. But yeah, I mean, Josh Oliver is a move tight end. He should be in. I don't know if you can say he will be involved early on, but James O'Shaughnessy was pretty involved in this passing game, and outside of D.D. Westbrook, DJ Shark, and at times Fournette, there hasn't really been a pass catcher that you can rely upon. So Josh Oliver might be that guy. He might be the red zone threat that they've been looking for Jacksonville. I know O'Shaughnessy, and let me look up these stats, but James O'Shaughnessy was fairly involved when he was healthy. In this season, he had he caught 14 of 20 targets for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. He never saw less than 3 targets in a game. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind Oliver as a stash right now because I think he could be more and more involved, especially if Foles comes back this season.
Yeah, and it seems like O'Shaughnessy was kind of the red zone guy, and they don't have a lot of that. I mean, I think D.D. Westbrook is probably the closest thing you've got at the moment. Jeff Swaim obviously is still the number one tight end for them, but when they get down around the red zone, there's a good chance that Oliver kind of becomes one of their top options. So worth a stash, not worth a start just yet, but yeah.
Here's a good question. So I in the Scott Fish Bowl, I'm facing, because I had Alan Lazard starting, so I need to start one more flex here. Robbie Anderson, Trey Quinn, or Josh Oliver, or Ito Smith, if we really want to go there.
Man, yeah, Robbie Anderson's tough to trust this week against Gilmore. So, I mean, I think it's Ito Smith for me.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, Oliver does sneak into conversations like that, and like we said, I mean, between buys and injuries, particularly at wide receiver, there's some people are juggling some pretty gross flex options.
Yeah, they are, including me. Chargers at Titans. Here's the matchup that apparently I've wanted to talk about all day.
Yep. Here's your boy.
Here's the we're in the midst of a QB change. I do not think Tannehill's a good QB. He's just slightly better than Mariota.
I don't even think that. I will say I won't go so far as to say that Mariota is better than Tannehill, because I mean clearly we've got some evidence to support the contrary here. But no, I don't think Ryan Tannehill is better than Mariota either. I think you made a lateral move here. It was about trying to energize that offense a little bit.
Right. And yeah, in terms of fantasy as well, I agree. I don't know what this changes really. I mean, nothing. It's still a run heavy offense.
And a horrible matchup for the passing game.
Bad matchup for the passing game. So yeah, the only one that I would have trusted is Delaney Walker, but he's got a bad matchup this week. I believe they've allowed the Chargers have allowed the second fewest points to tight ends this season. Let me double check that, but maybe that's over the last 3 weeks. Anyway, it's not a good matchup. Like there's nobody that you want to trust in that passing game. Derrick Henry's a good start, I think.
Yeah, Derrick Henry's good. And the problem is, I mean, one of those two guys, either Corey Davis or A.J. Brown, is in a decent situation. I mean, Casey Hayward shadows probably one of them, most likely. And it should be Corey Davis. It's pretty easy to put AJ Brown in the slot and avoid Casey Hayward. But that's not necessarily how they've been lining it up. I mean, I think Corey Davis spent some time in the slot too. I don't know that they're going to necessarily have either one of those guys actively avoid Casey Hayward. And that makes that, I mean, that just kind of limits both of them. You have no idea which of those two guys is going to be running free and which of those guys is going to be completely taken out. So while I think there's an opportunity for one, if not both, it's just it's way too tough to dissect this one. I wouldn't even try it if you can avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the pass catchers for this. It's just it's wasn't good before. It's still not good with Tannehill. But with on Henry, Justin Jones and Brandon Mebane, the starting defensive tackles for the Chargers, have both been ruled out. So you have Jerry Tillery, a rookie, and I don't remember who the other guy is, but that and Melvin Ingram is out too.
Yeah, and it was a good matchup, anyways. The Chargers have been have given up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs so far, and that's with a lot of those guys healthy. I mean, you haven't had Melvin Ingram for several weeks, but they're coming off of back-to-back games where they gave up 24.7 points to Phillip Lindsay, and then Connor got 30.9 fantasy points. So Derrick Henry's going to get volume. He's going to probably run all over them. They're going to want to run the ball a ton to keep the Chargers offense off the field. So yeah, I mean, it's a good matchup for Henry, but nobody else on that side of the ball for the Titans. And if you were going to bank on a guy any guy in this entire game to score a touchdown, it's Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm. On the Charger side, obviously Keenan Allen, Phillip Rivers, I guess. I mean, I don't love it. But if you're in a situation where you need to start Phillip Rivers, it's not the worst thing in the world. He hasn't been fantastic by any means this season. He's definitely showing his age a little bit, but he'll get you some points. I mean, they've allowed the Titans have allowed the 9th fewest fantasy points to QBs, but they've given up 4 games of 20 plus fantasy points. So it's not like the end of the world if you start Phillip Rivers. Do you trust Mike Williams at this point, especially with Hunter Henry back?
No, not really. I mean, it's a bad matchup anyways, but yeah, I mean, they do well. I will say Mike Williams is a lot of what his game has been this year has been kind of the deep stuff.
I think Phillip Rivers is losing that too.
Yeah,
he just has not.
He
looked
hasn't
good
been
this
accurate. Season. Yeah, and Mike Williams is. I mean, he gets hurt on every play. It seems like every single time. He's slow to get up, and it's with a different injury. He's like the guy on operation where his nose just kind of lights up, and it's something different every single time. I mean, just a combination of all of that makes it really hard to trust him. If there's a way to attack this Tennessee secondary, it's kind of with a deep ball, but they just haven't been accurate enough with that to trust. It's not the type of thing I want to chase anyways, but especially with the lack of success that they've had.
Melvin Gordon. I mean, you're not sitting Melvin Gordon because he's getting volume, but it's just not a good matchup. Especially with Austin Eckler there. I would probably rather start Eckler in PPR than I would Gordon this week. And then Hunter Henry seems to be the DFS value of the week. I believe I saw him as $4,000 on DraftKings. He's only $5,700 on FanDuel. I don't know what these. I mean, I don't know when these prices were set, but that's huge. And it's not like Tennessee has stopped the at least good tight ends from getting theirs. I mean, Eric Ebron had 11.5, David Njoku had 13.7, Austin Hooper had 130 yards for 22 fantasy points. Lee Smith caught a touchdown against them. They're not stopping good tight ends. And Hunter Henry is going to get targets, and he's probably the main red zone threat at this point for the Chargers. So you should be probably starting Hunter Henry as much as possible in DFS just because of that value.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just people still not trusting
the knee.
The fact that, I mean, just over a month ago, he broke his tibia. Like it
was a fracture in the knee. It was a microfracture in the knee. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, like if I was 5 weeks into that rehab, I mean, I would still be laying on the couch eating Pop-Tarts, gluten-free Pop-Tarts. Like, it's not. I would not be out catching 5 passes for 100 yards and.
Two touchdowns.
Yeah.
But even in week 1 too, like he was heavily involved. I think he caught 4 or 5 targets for 60 yards before he went down. He's definitely him and Eckler probably flip back and forth on who the second pass catcher is for Phillip Rivers, but he's the main red zone threat for Phillip Rivers. And it's regardless of that injury, at the low price that you're getting him, it's definitely worth that risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to move on quickly here. We only have 10 minutes. Ravens at Seahawks. Why don't you just go through and say who you're starting, not starting, and we'll just rifle through the rest of these here.
Start all your Seahawks. Chris Carson is a must start. Russell Wilson's a must start. Tyler Lockett's a must start. DK Metcalf is, I think he's still in consideration as a wide receiver.
Even with Marcus Peters, trade this week.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of Marcus Peters, especially, I mean, we kind of talked about it with, Auden Tate. Just the type of matchup that DK Metcalf presents is one that Marcus Peters has typically not had a whole lot of success with.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not afraid there. I mean, to me, this is the shootout. This is the high scoring game. This is where I'm taking the over. It does get a little tough for Baltimore just because, I mean, it sounds like Hollywood Brown's going to play, but a little bit banged up, not a whole lot else in the receiving game, but I mean, Mark Andrews is, I mean, he's he didn't get more banged up last week, so that's a step in the right direction. We're not adding to the list of injuries there. The Lamar Jackson rushing floor has just gone up and up every single week. And Mark Ingram has a good matchup here. I mean, Nick Chubb just ran for 150 and 2 touchdowns, something like that.
The Ravens run defense is sneaky bad. Like their secondary was so bad that people didn't run on them. Plus they score so much that people had to throw, or teams had to throw. But this run defense has not been good this season.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, in previous seasons, we would have looked at Ravens Seahawks and been like, man, this is going to be gross, except for, unless you like watching violence. Like that's what this is going to be. But the 2019 version of this matchup is all offense, no defense. I mean, they both have a little bit of a pass rush. But that's kind of it. This is a sneaky shootout.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think you obviously start. I don't think you ever sit Lamar Jackson. Start Mark Andrews. I guess Marquise Goodwin or sorry, Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. Jesus. If you want to take a risk and you need a high ceiling, I don't know if he's playing or not. He's questionable, so watch out for that. Ingram is definitely a start. And then, like you said, on the Seahawks side, it's basically everybody viable. Now that Will Disley is down, it's none of the tight ends. Luke Wilson could get his shot, but I doubt it. All right, Saints at Bears. I hate everything about this matchup. Bears defense is very good. The Saints defense has been great lately as well. Lattimore has been a lot better on the outside, so I don't like Allen Robinson this week. I don't like Trubisky this week. I don't like any of the running backs for the Bears this week. The only one that I really would take a shot on is Anthony Miller because of the struggles of the Saints against slot receivers. But like John said, you have to be wary that Taylor Gabriel is there. So this could be, maybe it's a Taylor Gabriel week. I don't really know. It's one of those weeks where Taylor Gabriel goes off. But on the Saints side, Michael Thomas, and that's all I'm really trusting on the Saints side. I mean, Lat Murray could get volume this week, and he might be a viable flex option if you need it. But other than that, Jared Cook's not going to do well. None of the other pass catchers are going to do well. Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to get shut down. So it's really Anthony Miller and Michael Thomas for me, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Although I'll throw into that. I think Tariq Cohen could be a flex starter for you. Just on game script. And I'm still starting David Montgomery in a lot of different places just because there's going to be that monster game at some point.
I doubt it. You and I can have this fight. You and I can have this fight, but
with 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we're not having this fight.
It's going to happen at some point.
No, it's not.
We just have no idea when it's going to.
It's not going to happen.
I promise you.
It's not going to.
He's going to have that game, and you're going to be like,
I promise you,
that was your one chance.
Yeah, nope, not happening.
I'm telling you.
Eagles, Cowboys. This is a sneaky, high-scoring game as well. Look out for Amari Cooper's status. Michael Gallup, I think, is still viable regardless because that secondary is bad. So Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, obviously Zeke. Dak has struggled a little bit lately, but I still think you have to trust Dak here. On the Eagles side, Jeffrey, Ertz, Wentz. Are you trusting any of these running backs?
I mean, Jordan Howard somewhat just kind of is the lead back, the guy who's most likely to get the volume, most likely to get the goal line stuff. I think Miles Sanders is startable. He's not a great start, but I think that he's kind of a low end RB2 just because of what I think his game script is likely to be. The Eagles could be chasing points here with their secondary completely unable to stop anybody in the passing game.
He did catch a deep touchdown last week as well. So he's definitely showed his hands there. And if that is the case, I would trust Sanders more than I would trust Howard this week in the pass catching role.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, every single time. But in the meantime, again, if they get in close, I think Jordan Howard is your goal line hammer.
Yeah, fair enough. And then with 4 minutes left before kickoffs, the Jets and the Patriots. Patriots at Jets.
Yeah, start Lev Bell. Just a ton of volume.
I get that, and I do, and it's hard to sit a 3-down back. But he had 18 carries for 35 yards. Luckily, I think he caught 4 of 4 for 20 some odd yards. Somewhat saved the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're going to rely on a touchdown here for Lev Bell to be viable. This Patriots defense has been phenomenal, as Jim Rome likes to say. So it's just like there's not a weakness. There's literally no weakness to this defense. I believe they rank second against the pass and DVOA, third against the run. Their secondary is fantastic. Their front 7 is fantastic because they have so many players they rotate in and out. You're not trusting Robbie Anderson. You're not trusting Chris Herndon despite the excitement that he's back. You probably don't want to start him until next week. Maybe a little bit of Crowder just because maybe there's going to be a lot of dump down there. And maybe that's where Lev Bell's saving grace is the dump down passes for Darnold. But you're not starting Darnold. I hate everybody on the Jets side of the ball here.
Yep. And love most of the Patriots.
Right. I think this is not going to be a close game.
No.
This could end up being another 20-point blowout for the Pats, which means a lot for Sony Michel. Though a lot of people are down on Sony Michel because he just has not looked elusive, but he gets double-digit carries every week, and he is the goal line. Well, actually, I was going to say he's the goal line back, and then Brandon Bolden takes 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks.
And Tom Brady took 2 of them too.
Yeah,
so.
what?
Rex
Burkhead's back. I don't know what that will look like. James White's probably going to get his touches. You always trust Edelman. I like Philip Dorsett this week. Because Gordon's likely out. So Dorsett is a sneaky play this week. Do you really want to trust Jacoby Myers at this point?
No, not really. Not if you can avoid it. Again, they should be well in control of this game to a point where they don't need to throw a lot. They're still going to do a little bit. Just kind of, standard practice, you're going to get something out of Edelman and Dorsett, like you said. But beyond that, they'll get it to a point where they can just run and control the clock and.
So I think Michel's a fine start this week. I think he could score a touchdown, but he's going to get 15 plus carries. Probably he's probably going to get you 70 plus yards. He won't be fantastic in PPR, but he's getting you points as a flex option.
Yeah, flex. I'm fine with that. But kind of like I said at the very beginning, though, the Jets' run defense has been pretty good. Now they get C.J. Mosley back, makes it even tougher. So I don't love Sony Michel this week, but I think it for a flex. And again, when we have kind of the issues that we've got with kind of the flex level players. I think that Sony is definitely startable. So is James White, for that matter.
All right. So that is it for us this week. Kickoffs have started. Thank you for all for tuning in. Hopefully we helped you a little bit here. Good discussion, John. We will see you next week. I believe Matt will be back next week, so it'll be the 3 of us. Bye, everybody.